Hey everybody, you're watching We the Fandom, where we discuss comic books, pop culture, and the fandom experience. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to see more content. How's it going, everybody? Jacob here, and today on We the Fandom, we're going to be doing a review for Transformers War of Cybertron Siege. And to do that, I have a guest on today, my buddy Robert, also known by his YouTube channel, Fitness with Plants. He is an up-and-coming YouTuber like myself. And do you want to give a quick description about what your channel is going to be about?
Yeah, so hey, everybody. Like you said, my name's Robert. I will be the host or the face behind Fitness with Plants, my YouTube channel, which is going to focus around my journey through the fitness industry while also maintaining a plant-based diet and nutrition plan. I'll be giving out advice that I find along the way. I eventually want to become a physical therapist. And as I'm going through college, I want to be giving out all the information that I learn to do that job as part of kind of free information for people who I feel like everyone should be healthy. So any kind of scientific actual help that you can get or you're looking for, I'll do my best to actually research it and not give you the bro science. But that'll be my channel, and I am happy to be here.
So you're saying I shouldn't just eat burgers and beer every day?
You can if you want. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I just want to give people the chance to see what maybe they could do that's different to help.
Cool. But yeah, Robert's actually made a whole fitness routine and diet plan for me right now. It's going pretty well so far, and we're just in the beginning stages. So we can make videos if you guys want to kind of update you on how that's going. But today we are here to talk about Transformers War of Cybertron Siege, which is chapter 1 of 3. I guess, what is it, like the 9th or 10th attempt to tell us all the story about Transformers.
Yeah, there's so many iterations. Transformers has not only the live action movies, you got multiple cartoon shows, the original G1, like the Generation 1 stuff. You got the comics themselves, which differ slightly from the original TV show. I mean, there's so much different continuities for Transformers, but a lot of them are still good, in my opinion. It just depends on which one you like the most.
Yeah, for myself, I've never been the biggest Transformers fan. I watched the G1 series as a kid. I think I watched Transformers Armada. I watched Beast Wars. And then Transformers Prime, I think, was the one TV show that I really paid attention to. It kind of gave an easier version of the lore and history behind everything that happened, even though it kind of split off a little bit from the original G1 history. And then I've watched, obviously, the live-action movies, which are kind of, some of them are okay, some of them aren't, but it's kind of nice to get to what I've personally always wanted, which is a story on the war for Cybertron. I'm hoping with this series and hoping with its popularity that one day they'll make a live action series out of it.
I hope so too. I mean, the best part of the Transformers Bumblebee movie was literally the part they're on
the first 3 minutes.
Yeah, like the part they're on Cybertron's the best Transformers movie you've ever seen, like live action. But then it goes, back to Earth. But
yeah. What about you?
For me, Transformers, I watched the original show back when I was really small, so I barely even knew what was going on. I remember, funnily enough, my first intro to the idea of death was when Optimus Prime died, because I asked my mom, because when we were watching the movie, so spoilers, sorry, the 1986 Transformers movie, animated movie, right? Optimus Prime dies in it, and it's a very big moment, especially if you were actually like a kid during that time when it came out. That was even a bigger thing. I was obviously born a little bit later. I was born in the 90s. So I watched it when I was like maybe 5, 6. And I asked my mom, because I don't think she knew how violent this movie would be, but she kind of turned back to see, and I was like, "Are we all going to die, like Optimus?" And she was like, "Yeah." She didn't hold back at all and told me the truth, and I just kind of like stunned. I was like, "Oh no!" But it is my enjoyment of the movie. I've watched that movie repetitively throughout my life, and can probably quote every word from it. So I'm a huge fan of Transformers. I've watched the shows. I played the video games War for Cybertron. I thought they were fantastic. And if you all ever get a chance to play those, I know maybe the graphics are a little outdated now, but if you're a fan of Transformers, they have a lot of just nostalgia for the characters, as well as just hints and stuff and like playbacks towards like the old show and stuff and characters from the comics that you don't really get to see in the live actions at all. So you don't get as much representation as you want from the Transformers because they're so focused obviously on the human characters. But like seeing like in the game, one of the big things is Metroplex shows up, and he's this humongous transformer who fights with the Autobots. And just seeing him in like any of the big gigantic, and if you've seen the show on Netflix, spoiler alert, they show kind of some of those, and they call them the Guardians. But those massive robots that are kind of home to Cybertron and aren't really Autobots or Decepticons. They're kind of their own thing. But yeah, a lot of influence. I've watched a lot of the shows. I've thought a lot of the cartoon shows were never as good as the TV one, but this show, I will say, I am very, very happy with. I really like it.
Have you read the IDW comics?
I've read some. So a lot of the issue I have is just the continuity, because I've read some of the original G1. I even have like a nice little, I don't know how to put it, like store of the original G1. And like the very first comics that came out. But at the same time, the comics themselves differ in so many ways. Like when I was a little kid, my brother owned even a G.I. Joe crossover comic with like the bad guys from G.I. Joe were teaming up with Megatron, and Megatron at the time was a tank, like this big green tank. I actually had that toy as well. I had a lot of the Transformers toys, but so they've had a lot of iterations, so it's hard for me to read one single comic and consider it like the best. So I've kind of only played around with reading the comics.
I mean, I've already told you about how reading some of the IDW stuff, especially like the Megatron origin, I try to get into it, but when they first started out, like so many of the not just Autobots, but all the Transformers look so similar in their design.
Oh yeah,
I couldn't tell like Megatron apart from the rest of them. Just looked like you got one silver robot, you got 6 other silver robots.
Yeah. Well, here's a good example. Like right here, if you look at the comic, like you can see Optimus,
yeah,
and maybe you can see some other robots that you recognize, but a lot of it's just the same look for the same guy, right? Like right here, like who can you tell who those 3 guys are? You can't really. They all look the same. They're blue and silver, right? So you have to go by the text boxes and stuff. And if people watching, if you saw, that's in Spanish. That's because I read in Spanish as well as English. But I'm not just got a book that I found in Spanish and don't know how to read. But yeah, it's kind of, you have to get past. It's really old, obviously. Like it's older comics. But a lot of, I mean, they're blocky shapes, right? They're rectangles put into human form. And then they have similar colors sometimes. So it's hard to tell. You have to look at the faces and look for like specific arm guns and stuff to tell them apart. But yeah.
So what is your, I guess you can get into either your overall kind of opinion of the series, and then if you want to get in like specifics, like characters or certain episodes that you enjoyed more than the others.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I already said I loved it, or I like it, right? I think the show itself is kind of like a breath of fresh air into Transformers, in the sense that a lot of the Transformers, and this one might end up on Earth too, but it says War for Cybertron trilogy, so I'm sure there'll be more. But the fight on Earth is where they usually focus all their attention, even in the other cartoons, right? And the story on Cybertron has always been extremely, I don't know, interesting to me, because what happens on Cybertron obviously is the catalyst for everything that occurs afterwards. And it's really just an extension of their war on Cybertron that ends up on Earth. And I would say this show not only creates like a slightly new version of all that, it brings a slight grittiness to it that I really like and enjoy. So it's slightly more adult without there being any cuss words, without there being any blood, because it's just robots shooting each other, but just explosions. So that, like, without being extremely violent and like what we modern sense we think of violence, it's still grittier and it has more adult themes, which the old Transformers has in some places, well, especially the movie, which is what I grew up first watching, right? The original 1986 animated film is extremely violent and adult compared to the rest of the shows. And like within the first 5 minutes, you see Autobots dying left and right by Megatron. But this show itself, I think the war between them is a lot more interesting than just good versus evil. It's this kind of controlling rebellion, this rebellion that became more than a rebellion as Megatron tries to take over Cybertron and create a better Cybertron, right? And then you have the Autobots who deny this claim to basically their freedom, and they see Megatron's path towards peace as an authoritarian view, and obviously they're not okay with that. And Optimus Prime leads them against them. I love the fact that they're basically brothers in arms beforehand, so it gives Megatron and Optimus Prime this kind of like connection that they don't have sometimes. Like sometimes they're just warriors on each side who've been fighting for millennia, so that gives them a connection. But in this case, they actually knew each other. They studied under the same person, so
yeah, they're kind of like the apprentices of Alpha Trion, along with Ultra Magnus?
Yep, Ultra Magnus. Who Ultra Magnus, even in the old show and stuff, has been like a huge lieutenant or general under Optimus Prime. And even in the animated film, Optimus Prime gives Ultra Magnus the leadership of Matrix when he dies, thinking that Ultra Magnus is the proper successor for the leadership, the Matrix of leadership. And so I really liked Ultra Magnus's view as well. And obviously, these are huge spoilers for the whole show, but Ultra Magnus having this kind of view that their path forward is causing more harm and going to probably cause the extinction of the Autobots rather than come to a peace between the two factions. And as it goes along, Ultra Magnus like tries to create a peace and talks to Megatron. Bad things happen. Megatron I like because he isn't like, he's almost like this freedom fighter who's like, he doesn't see himself as this like evil villain who's ha ha ha, I'm taking over. Like he sees himself as this liberator of Cybertron who's doing what he has to save it, basically. So it gives it a more dynamic view rather than just, I'm evil, I want all the good things and take them from the silly Autobots. And the fact that there's a rebellion is a nice little play off the original kind of storyline where the Decepticons rebelled against the Quintessons, or the Quintessons, however you want to pronounce it, who the Autobots were kind of just like worker drones for, and didn't really know any better. And the Decepticons rebel. But in the rebellion, they also attack the Autobots. But in this case, it seems they've turned the Autobots into like a class structure, like they were in some way above the Decepticons. And we haven't seen as much into the past, and I'm really excited to see it. But it seems like the Decepticons were the workers and the people who were bred to die and provide the economy and provide the energon for the rest of Cybertron. While others benefited, they were the mule in the field, right? Until they rebelled with obviously some of the thought processes of Alpha Trion, and like even Ultra Magnus talks about when he fought with Megatron. So there's obviously this like rebellion against an authoritarian group who might be the Quintessence, like in the past, or it might be a different group. But the Autobots in some way before were a higher class, and maybe they helped with the rebellion, but you don't know yet, which I'm excited to see. But yeah, I think it's a much more adult view of Transformers. I think it's very complicated, and I like the fact that they haven't given us everything yet, so there's more to look into. But it also has plenty of ties to the old Transformers, especially the way they look. They all look pretty similar to their G1 versions, which it's nice to see. But yeah, that's pretty much a broad view of it. What do you think?
Well, first, I wanted to know what are the cons for you, and then what was your favorite moment throughout the 6 episodes?
Oh, cons? I don't know. For like parts I didn't like, I don't really think I have much. If it was anything, it would be nitpicks.
I mean, that's fine.
Like I liked pretty much all of it when I watched it. And I mean, that might just be Transformers fanboy. Like it doesn't take much to make me happy, but that wouldn't be true because I've watched the other Transformers cartoon shows. Prime was pretty good. I like Prime, but like the old, like the Armada was okay. There was the one where they had the little chip robots they had to attach, and they got stronger and stuff, which was, I thought, awful.
It was very repetitive.
Yeah, it was
constantly going, like every episode it was a mission to just go find a smaller robot.
Yeah. But yeah. And I mean, you can go back and watch the original show and it's plenty corny and like really dated. But at the same time, I think the movie, the animated movie, kind of is the right tone. And that's what I remember for the G1 more than anything is that movie. And then obviously you have a very similar tone, in my opinion, to that movie and to this show. So for me, I didn't really have any nitpicks. Yeah, I mean, I liked most of the decision choices. I even like subtle things like the Decepticons obviously being more warlike, even some of the Decepticons being massive compared to the Autobots. So you can almost see this kind of like small, like huddling rebellion group fighting against this very large and more like supported group. Because even Megatron's like talking in this tower, like where his base of power is. Which I love those scenes of basically like his propaganda and changing the war to make it sound like the Autobots are this like terrorist group. Yeah, I don't really know. I've thought about, I don't think I've thought about anything. I was like, man, I don't know if I like that. I've pretty much watched it, and the whole time I was like enjoying it without really. I would probably have to watch it again to go back and find anything to nitpick. But for my first view, I thought it was fantastic. For my favorite part, I would say, I think my favorite part is when Jetfire betrays the Decepticons. I think that's probably one of my favorites. I like Jetfire's character a lot because he originally turns on the Decepticons too. In his original iteration. I like Jetfire's character. I like the fact that it's like this clear, like there's this very thin line between how he thinks things should go, and like he just happens to have this very, like he's obviously a seeker, so he hunts down and kills Autobots, but his viewpoint on like how this war should be going, it's starting to get away from him and how he thought this was supposed to happen, as Megatron cares more about winning than he does like the ideologies that were behind the war in the first place. And then turns when he's like, I will not be part of a genocide, which I think I love a good character. Like, I love a good character development. And I love a character being like, nah, man, like I can't do this anymore. Like I thought I could be a part of this like rebellion, or not this rebellion, but this new force of good for Cybertron, but I was actually part of the bad guys. So I like a good realization, I suppose, of where he figures out that he doesn't need to be a Decepticon anymore. And he goes with the Autobots. I love the part where he's like tells them to put a chip in him to blow his head up if he betrays them. And it's kind of very like at that point you're like, wow, would Autobots do that? But even like that more realism, that more adult thing where you get the Autobots being like, it's the tactical choice. We don't want to, but that's what we probably should do. And he's like, go ahead and do it. So I really like Jetfire's character, and I think he was, for me, one of my favorite parts of this season.
See, I thought he was going to be like, I thought they were going to reveal him to be like an undercover Autobot the whole time. Like the way he acted compared to like not just Starscream, but the other Decepticons who were in the Seekers. Like it just seemed to me like he was trying to be like a peacetime policeman versus like a war, like a guy hunting down war criminals or something like that. And I was just waiting for the moment where he's going to be like, you know what, I'm actually an Autobot, so screw you guys. Which, I mean, he did change sides, but
yeah, I think in a way it because he's hesitant from the beginning, but at the same time, like he's prepared to kill Autobots from the beginning. He just doesn't see, like when he's captured them, he just doesn't kill them immediately. Like he sees them as, prisoners, and he's definitely against the idea of just mutilating every single, Autobot he sees. But yeah, I thought that too, actually. I will admit, when I was watching, I was wondering if he was an undercover Autobot, but the fact that he gets to, like, you start to see more of that development of his character, and the more he like starts to question Megatron, and to the point that he obviously is like, he finds the base and he's like, I can't let them know because they're just going to kill everyone here. And just go in and commit genocide. And he's like, I can't let that happen. And he even tries to return to Megatron, but obviously he gets found out, and then he's just like, I can't do this anymore, and runs away, right? But yeah. So I think that's one of my favorite parts of the show. Obviously, I love Optimus Prime no matter what it is. I'm sad it's not Peter Cullen's voice, but the guy who they got...
He's pretty close.
Yeah, he's pretty close. I think the guy they got was like a Frank... It's like Fauci?
He definitely sounded like a guy who's done like anime voiceovers before.
So Jake Fauci, yeah. So he's done... he's played Optimus Prime before, and apparently in the Transformers Cyberverse. But he got online. He was an online sensation for his Optimus Prime impression, and then eventually, I guess it was so cool that people thought he did such a good job with the voice impression. He actually got a job doing Optimus Prime's voice, which is really cool.
But yeah. For me, like I already mentioned before, I love that they did a War for Cybertron series, because I've gotten, like, even not being like as big a fan as you and not following every comic and every TV show and all that, I've gotten tired of seeing like the Transformers just like team up with teenagers, and like I'm tired of seeing like Shia LaBeouf go save the world with Transformers. Like I just wanted to see Transformers fight other Transformers. And again, I'm hoping they make like a live action CGI War for Cybertron movie. But yeah, it was cool to see the actual War for Cybertron. I really enjoyed the G1 designs, because even though in the comics they're kind of hard to tell certain Transformers apart, it was a little bit easier in the show, which is another part I liked, is that compared to Prime, which was my favorite series, they kind of gave more variety in the designs for the Decepticons. Because like in Transformers Prime, they kind of just had like 4 Decepticons, and then all the rest of them were clones of one. And they still kind of did that for War for Cybertron, but they had a lot more like actual individuals.
Yeah.
Versus just like a clone army.
Which comes from the old stories, right? Because the Decepticons used to clone their people. They had a lot of crazy clone warriors, basically.
And then Omega Supreme, when he just like pops out of the ground and he's like that's I think they're trying to follow the IDW continuity, like the comics continuity, because just for some of the themes that they have in there, kind of the interactions and the history of Ultra Magnus, Optimus Prime, Megatron, and then like the Omega Supreme, that scene where he just pops out of the ground as they're trying to escape in the Ark. That's a literal like panel in one of the comics. So it was kind of cool. It was really cool to see that, especially because I didn't know who the Guardians were, because when he introduced them, it was kind of just like shadows. Yeah. And then they revealed that like, oh, we're not going to help you. Like, we don't do that kind of thing. And then he just pops out of the ground, just starts destroying the Decepticons. I would say cons for me. I have a few of them. I wish they had started at the beginning of the war and kind of given more history, just because like I still consider myself like a new fan. I'm not super up on like the whole history and lore of like Cybertron itself, the Primes, and kind of the whole dynamic between what actually started the Decepticons and their rebellion against what was mostly an Autobot, like, I don't know what you'd call it, not a monarchy, some form of government.
Or they run society, apparently, or they're in a higher position. Yeah.
Let's see. I wish the Wreckers had been kind of shown in the series. Like Transformers Prime, I think, introduced the Wreckers to Transformers lore, and that was really cool to me. And it was cool to have an idea of like the Decepticons do a lot of bad crap, and the Autobots kind of have a higher code of honor, but the Wreckers are kind of like the Black Ops team of the Autobots. So they are willing to do like the bad stuff that Optimus Prime wouldn't do to win the war.
It's a neat idea, right? In the past, they kind of, and I think in the comics too, they used the Dinobots for that kind of stuff, because the Dinobots were their more like, what's the way to put it? More like rebellious, because they weren't really, they were Autobots, but they also had their own kind of way of dealing with things. Very rebellious, kind of their own they were like cowboys, basically.
Wasn't Grimlock like an anti-hero sort of?
He's kind of,
like a villain / anti-hero.
He's had a few different iterations, but I think one of the one of my favorite parts with Grimlock is actually one of the video games for War for Cybertron. You get to play as him, and they have a different view on how they came about, but you actually get to play as him, which is really fun. The old like animated show, they find the dinosaurs from Savage Island, I think it's what it's called, from the original like Marvel continuity.
Talking about the Savage Land.
Savage Land, that's it. Yeah, that's where they got like the dinosaur idea, and they go to like the Savage Land. And then I think in the TV show they find them. Originally, when they activate them and turn them on, they turn against the Autobots and kind of go crazy. But eventually they get them to be their friends and stuff, and they work for the Autobots. Each one of them is pretty powerful on their own. Grimlock's very powerful. They've had Grimlock pretty much fight Devastator before by himself. So it's...
I mean, I saw him in the Transformers Prime series where he basically beat the crap out of Optimus Prime the first time they met.
Yeah, he's massive. He's huge. Like, he's pretty powerful. Like, he's definitely one of my favorite characters in the Transformers. I don't know how I feel about dinosaurs, but still seeing him like transform and stuff into a T-Rex is not bad. It's still pretty cool.
I mean, what do you think about Beast Wars?
Oh, I loved Beast Wars when it came out when I was a kid, mainly because CGI for its time was actually really good. Right now, it'd be awful, but the story itself actually connects with the G1 stuff. So in a way, it has a continuity, and you can kind of continue that story or get a little bit more from the original continuity. One of my favorite episodes from Beast Wars is when one of and I can't remember his name, but he was a Predacon originally. And then he turned to again, I love when bad guys become good guys. I don't know why, but I do.
Wasn't Megatron like a Velociraptor or a T-Rex in that series?
Yeah, he was like some kind of reptilian one. I can't remember what he was exactly. I remember Optimus was an ape. And then this Predacon saves the Autobots and like sacrifices himself and beats the crap out of Megatron and dies in the effort. But there's like a whole episode where he like redeems himself and beats the crap out of some Decepticons. And it was one of my favorite episodes when I was a kid because it was just this character, and it's kind of sad because he like looks up at the sky and stuff at the end as he's dying. But I don't know. I like Beast Wars. There was some good stuff. There was a show after Beast Wars that was a part of it as well. But I didn't watch it as much. But yeah.
Let's see what else. I kind of didn't like Optimus Prime's personality because I felt like he, like compared to other incarnations, he was so like stubborn. He seems like so stubborn and single-minded to me in the series. Like whenever things weren't going well for the Autobots, or like whenever a sacrifice had to be made, he's just like, "All right, we're gonna do it." And the only answer he always gave was like, "We fight for the freedom of all sentient beings." And he just said that over and over and over again. And it's like even in some other iterations, like he doesn't necessarily take usually, I don't know, he takes other Autobots like opinions and like kind of code of ethics into consideration more often, I feel like. And also the whole like fighting for the freedom of all sentient beings. I mean, maybe it was just because he was said it so much without giving like backup reasons. Like even like if you read like Captain America or see him in the movie, he wouldn't just say like, "Oh, freedom, 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 freedom." Like he would give like other reasons for doing things. So I think
I don't know. Maybe
they kind of made him seem a little one-dimensional versus other incarnations that I've seen before.
In some ways, I think the goal they were going for is obviously like he's a little bit more toward like his opinions are he's so focused on trying to end this war and fight back against Megatron that he's single-minded in it, and it's starting to create cracks in the relationships he has with other Autobots, with like Alita, with Ultra Magnus, as they're trying to like give him advice or they're trying to work with him, but he's very focused on his goal. It just depends, right? I think
especially since he newly came into the matrix of leadership. Like he's still kind of new to being like the Optimus Prime that most people know.
A little bit. I think also they want to create this idea where Optimus is because in the old shows, Optimus is in one way he's more one-dimensional in those because he's perfect. Like he's the perfect ideology for the good guy versus evil. He always makes the right decisions for the Autobots, and if he doesn't, like, it's not because he made the wrong decision, it's because the Decepticons somehow deceived them, right? But in this case, he's flawed a little bit, more than I would say he's flawed in some of the other iterations. But I'm waiting to see how they take his character. I do like the fact that his character, when forced, like when other Autobots want to just like mutilate Decepticons, he won't let them. because he's very hard in his ideals. Even though they have these people who are obviously suffering from Decepticon like oppression and who are dying, right? And they're at war with them. He won't let them just like murder I think it's Impactor at that moment. It's like he's like, no, we're not just going to kill him, and then just leaves. Right? He listens to the person and he tries to convince them, and then he's like, well, I'm not going to force you because that's not what I'm about, and then walks away. But yeah, I like it. I don't know. It's different, and I'm excited to see where they take it. I'm hoping the next iteration, the next part of the trilogy, is like what you wanted, was an Origins. I'm kind of hoping that the next part goes back in time and then shows you the beginning of the war, or at least the beginnings of Megatron, Ultra Magnus, and Prime's kind of connection with each other.
What'd you think about like the whole Alpha Trion protocols thing, going to Bumblebee, and he has it for 5 minutes, and he's like, "All right, I'll join the Autobots now," and then it goes away. Like it kind of seemed
what happens with that. So I'm reserving judgment. I agree with you that it kind of just.
It seems like a plot device to just get Bumblebee to join the Autobots.
In a way, yeah. So actually, that could be a pet peeve. Right there's the one. All right. So plot point designed so that they can find the Allspark. Alpha, because think about it. Who tells them where it's at? It's Bumblebee, because he gets the Alpha Trion particles or protocols, and then he helps them design the map because he knows where everything was originally. And yeah, so now they have the ability to get the Allspark, and he joins their team. So you're right about that too. So then Bumblebee joins them.
Well, it also brings up a big question of Ultra Magnus had the Alpha Trion protocols. Like, why didn't he do more during the war to include finding the Allspark and all that?
Well,
first it was kind of just like giving up or surrendering himself to Megatron. Like, he could have found the Allspark, and I don't know, with all the knowledge of the past crimes or whatever.
Nobody wanted to go after the Allspark until what is it? It's not Soundwave. The villain, the Decepticon, that the scientist. Oh, what's his name?
I think he also has Wave in his name.
I think that's the problem, right? Where we go? Shockwave. Yeah, Shockwave. Gosh, sorry. So Shockwave is wants to use the Allspark in his mad scientist ways to reformat the Autobots and the Decepticons. And before this, nobody's really, because to them it's like, where could we even find it? Why would we care about it, right? So in that case, I don't see why he would have gone for the Allspark. At the same time, I mean, maybe that's the best he could come up with for an idea. Just because you have knowledge doesn't mean that you can fix a war, right? In this case, Bumblebee, the only thing he does is find the Allspark. The protocols don't really do much else other than get him to join. But I feel like he'll get him back. Something will happen. We'll see. But yeah, I agree with you that it's kind of, he gets them and then he loses them. And now he joins their crusade. But yeah.
Also,
a plot point to get him in there, but I doubt it. I feel like there's more to it.
I was also kind of worried at the beginning because it felt like, I feel like the last few Transformers animated series that have come out and the live action movies have put a huge emphasis on Bumblebee and making him kind of like the central protagonist of every series. And I was like, oh, here they go again. They're going to make Bumblebee like the prominent hero. And so,
because he sells little kids like Bumblebee.
I don't know why. He's just like a yellow car. Like almost all the other Transformers have.
Even in the original, he was good friends with like the human characters. But it just depends. So like Ironhide was actually kind of the more of the best friend of the human character in the original G1. But yeah, and then Bumblebee was there too. I mean, he's been around for forever. They decided to go with Bumblebee, and yeah, I don't know. Bumblebee was never one of my favorite characters. But I have liked him as a character in the War for Cybertron video games, and I like him as a character in this one because he actually didn't have that, like he had a role, but he wasn't like the primary main character. Like we weren't following Bumblebee's path through the war, right? As he goes around he has a purpose. He shows up, he leaves, he comes back, he leaves. So it's definitely still plenty of character development on other characters, which I was very happy for, and I totally understand your feelings about being afraid that Bumblebee was going to be the primary character.
I mean, at least they didn't do the stupid him having no voice thing. And I'm really hoping in the next 2 chapters they don't do that. Like
they won't. If they do, I'd be very mad. It seems like the people making this show have a different intention for their Transformers than the live action movies, right? I think I feel like I loved it anyways, but I feel like with the next 2 iterations, it'll be very good. I'm excited to see what comes next. Like, I hope there's an origin. If there's not an origin, I want to see what they do, right? And see how it goes from there. Because I love Transformers, and seeing stuff on Cybertron is always awesome. But yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they don't make us wait an entire year or more for the next chapter.
I hope not, because it's only like 6 episodes. Something like that.
Yeah, first chapter was only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah.
So yeah, if you guys are also looking forward to the next chapter, please let me know in the comments. If you would like us to do a episode by episode review of the series, please leave a comment below. Thank you all you guys for watching, and look out for Fitness with Plants on YouTube in the future. See you guys next time.
See y'all later.